right, so let's get started. We are here to present Microsoft Dynamics 365, Finance and Operations, the road to successful cloud deployments with the FastTrack team. That's probably the world's record for the longest title of any session. But my name's Dana Bork. I'm a solution architect, and I work in the FastTrack program. This is Severin Bach. We're going to give a presentation this afternoon. Just want to let you know that we're actually architects that work in the field, so we're not professional speakers. We actually work with customers on a day-to-day basis, and that's kind of the basis of the presentation today. So I'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to do an overview of the FastTrack program to give you guys some context about what the program is. So we're going to start with a couple slides on that. All right, so the FastTrack program is a customer success program. It is sponsored by the engineering team, and we're working with customers through the entire implementation lifecycle, starting from onboarding until post-go-live. And the goals of the program are really reduce time to usage, so we want to get you to the cloud as quickly as we can, but of course without introducing risk. So we're really trying to take wasted time out of the process. We want to drive use and adoption, so that really means getting the right solution for your business and your users and making sure that all of the readiness that's needed to drive adoption is taken on. And then also, first and foremost is customer satisfaction. So we want customers to be happy with the solution and to expand on that solution as they move forward and, adopt other parts of our product in the Dynamics suite as well as, the broader Microsoft. So we work directly with the engineering program or with the engineers in the product team. And a lot of times there are new features that customers bring forward and ask for, and it's not every single feature, but at times where it's warranted, we'll work with the engineering team to try to incorporate those features into the product, especially if there's a lot of you asking for the same thing. It just makes sense for us to put it into the product. And then we're delivered remotely primarily. We do get out to see customers on occasion, but we have architects in all the time zones. So Seb's from Germany, I'm from Los Angeles. I work in the Americas team, so we've got folks that support this region and then in the EMEA region, and then we also have another team in Asia-Pac. So we've got a couple of levels of the program, so a few different service levels. You'll see there in the upper right-hand corner. Over 150 seats is what we refer to as FastTrack. So that's differentiated by a program that's less than 150 seats, which is the blue ball, and then we've tried to sort of break that up in the graph below so you can follow along with what's included in each of those programs. So the blue is called Essentials, and then we just refer to the green as FastTrack. So I mentioned that we start in onboarding. So we do have an onboarding program. When you purchase your subscriptions of the application, you get introduced to our onboarding team. They'll help you to create a project in lifecycle services, also known as LCS, and that's the administrative portal that's used to maintain the environments. In the FastTrack program, we'll do what we call a partner kickoff. So we want to meet with your partner, understand what's happening with the project and what the goals of the project are, and then we'll do a customer kickoff where we meet with the customer, the partner, and the FastTrack architect. And that's where we really initiate the activities of the project with you. And then we do support with both our Essentials and our FastTrack programs with what are called community office hours. So these are bi-weekly calls where we host kind of a small topic, and then we open it up for Q&A. It's an opportunity to meet directly with some of our architects and share your experiences and ask questions. And then we're also doing, in the FastTrack program, we have a what we call solution blueprint review. And that's kind of the meat of what we're doing in the project with you, at least for the beginning. And this is where we want to understand what the solution is really made up of. What are all of the integrations that you have? What are the components of the solution that you will be implementing? What types of data migrations are you going to undertake? Every facet of the implementation. That helps us to understand the context of the solution and then provide the best advice for you on a go-forward basis. And then we maintain or complete that solution blueprint review as we progress through the project. And then as you're getting ready to go live, we have a fairly robust review that we do. And I think I have a slide on that later, so I'll not dive into that too much right now. And then we also do a post-go-live review. So after go-live, there's some different things to consider than you would have considered at the start of the program or in the middle of the program. So as I mentioned, we're focused on the solution. After we understand the solution blueprint to some extent, we can then give guidance on all of these aspects you see on the right-hand side of the screen. So environment planning, data migration planning and design, integration planning, performance planning. All of these aspects are important on almost every project, and understanding the solution blueprint helps us to really give you the best advice on each of those areas and help you to formulate plans that will lead you to success. So one more piece of the program, we are not a replacement for partners, so we really partner with your partner and you, so three-legged stool, if you will. And there are different roles and responsibilities for each of us in the implementation process. And as a customer, of course, you're the overall, all-up responsible party for all of the outcomes and resources on the project. Your partner will work with you on the entire implementation life cycle, and they're focused on helping you to design the solution, configuring the solution, helping with data migrations, building customizations, and all of those things. And then we're really here to provide guidance and best practice and help you to avoid the pitfalls and things that will slow down your project. So what we're going to do for the rest of the presentation is really talk about the success factors that we see in the program. So this is based on our experience with about 2,000 implementations. We have about 800 or 900 maybe that are live, and another 11, 12, or 1,300 that are in the implementation process. So Sev and I and the broader team, there's about 25 of us within our team, and then within the entire FastTrack team, there's over 100 of us. And with all that experience of working with different customers, we see patterns of problems or areas that we see good things and bad things, and we want to share those with as many customers as we can so you can have overall better results in the projects.
Okay, I will take over. Maybe, is the voice okay? It's too loud to cry? Okay, I just proceed. So my name is Severin. I'm working as solution architect. I'm doing a FastTrack too, as Dana said. I'm based in Germany, so I'm focusing on the customers which are sitting in EMEA. And I'd like to speak with you about the success factors. As Dana said, we do have a customer and a partner kickoff, so it's a combined session. It took us about 3 up to 4 hours. And at this customer kickoff, we are going through these success factors you will see. Because for us, it's very important that we are pointing the customers to the areas where it's most important to take care, to go into the detail on the beginning to see, okay, which will be the challenges we are getting in the future. Okay, we like to avoid issues in front of, and therefore we are here to sharing and to asking questions about, hey, what about data migration? What about the testing approach? What about the LLM process? And this is something we will do now, okay? At the end, we do have room for questions, so we can do something. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to start with speaking about have the end in mind. That means when you are implementing, at the end, hopefully you're reaching the point to go live, and we have a go live recovery process in place. That means we are helping you and we are with you in the go live time. We are speaking about a process about the go live confirmation. We have to know when you like to go live. That's critical for us. We have to ensure that the production environment is ready for you to be used. The second thing is we will see is a go live checklist. We have a checklist ready. You can download it on the partner portal. It's a customer portal, sorry, which you have to fill out and send it back to us. We have an email DL for it. And we are getting the checklist, and with this checklist, we are doing a go-live assessment. In the checklist you see on the right side, this is the topics. So we will ask for, okay, what's your solution scope? What about the LCS? What about the solution acceptance? Did you test its performance? Some data migration topics. So a lot of things will be inside this checklist. And with this filled out checklist, we are doing an internal assessment. The internal assessment is about what about the Active Directory synchronization? Do you have a generic admin user in place? Which will be the Azure region? We are reviewing a little bit the telemetry data we collected on the Tier 2 UAT environment. So this will all come together in the goal of assessment. And as soon as this is done, we will deploy production. When we see issues, when we see something which is not good, we will start a mitigation. So we are coming back to you and saying, hey, well, we saw this thing, let's speak about it in detail, what is this about? Maybe we can figure something out before you run into issues when you're live. Okay, so that's the process when you like to go live. The next thing is, for us, when you're thinking about an ERP implementation, for us it's most important that you're focusing on your business processes. So do not start any configuration. Do not start any customization or overlayings when this is done. Do not start any extensions, for example, without organizing your processes. So first of all, focus on the business processes and then continue. So we are speaking about scope management. What is my scope for the first phase, the second phase, the third phase? What are my requirements? Fit gap, and then take the gaps and trying to translate it into your project plan, right? Think about the test management and the timing when you have to test something. So this should be all organized in front of before you're starting implementing ERP. ERP is quite complex, and yeah, it's good to do it at the beginning. At the left side, you see a picture from the Business Process Modeler. This is a tool we are providing in the LCS where you can create a process hierarchy, which can be synchronized to the VSTS, and now the new name is DevOps, so which can be synchronized into DevOps, and on DevOps you can start developing or tracking the process of your implementation. Okay, another very important success factor is the environment strategy. Within our subscriptions you're subscribing to, you will get 3 environments. You will get 1 build environment, you're getting 1 acceptance test environment, and you're getting the productive environment. So the build environment is on the Tier 1 level. So for those of you who don't know what Tier 1 is a 1 box which is running in our Azure subscription. So you have full access to it without admin permissions, but you can do a lot of things. So you can connect remotely, you have an RDP session available, and it's a local SQL server which is running. On the acceptance test environment, you have a tier 2 level. That means this database is running on Azure SQL. So this is the same architecture you're getting when you're going live with production. So I kindly ask you, do every test on this acceptance test environment. Do every end user test on this environment, because only this is helping you and is securing that the productive instance will run smoothly. So every integration, every data migration, every end user testing should be done in acceptance test. For example, we will review the connections and the data you created in the UAT environment inside the go live assessment. And when we see that there's no transaction, but you're telling us that you're getting 2 million of customers and thousands sales orders an hour, there was no real test. So this is something where we are working on and where we are asking questions. So the red ones, these are not inside our standard subscriptions, but it really depends on the complexity of the project. So in some projects, you have to have more environments, and this can be subscribed in addition. So it depends on the contract you are you EA, CSP, but you can add some subscriptions, some environments into your LCS project. And this is really required in some reasons, especially when you like to have parallel activities, you like to work on the data migration, you like to work on the testing, and you like to work on the performance testing on the same time. Yeah, this is maybe an action point for you to get an additional environment. And this topic should be covered in the beginning, because in the background we do have a commercial impact. This should be inside the budget somehow. Therefore, for us, it's good to think about this in the beginning. Okay, maybe one thing to add here is the productive environment is not available during the implementation. After the UAT is done and after your implementation is ready to go live, we will deploy production based on the usage profile, which will help us to understand the sizing. This is important to know. Okay, we spoke about the environments. You see here development, build, test environments. For me, this is a good point to go into the application lifecycle management. It doesn't matter if you are running an agile project or waterfall or Scrum or whatever your project methodology is, you will have somehow a development area, a build area, and the deploy phase, right? And what we are proposing is that you are doing your development in the VM on HVD boxes you can host on your own PCs, that this VM's producing the code and you can check it into the VSTS, or now it's called in DevOps. And then you should have one build instance where you are, which is used to create the build. Normally no test is running on this machine. And after the build is done, you're getting a deployable package, and this deployable package is containing compiled code. And this compiled code can be deployed to, or can be uploaded to the LCS shared asset library, that's the LCS. And from there you can deploy to the UAT environments on the tier 2 level. And this deployable package only contains compiled code. That means on the UAT environment you will be not able to debug something because no source code is available, it's compiled. It's required to deploy the package to UAT. You have to mark it as release candidate. And only when this is done, you can deploy this package to production. So you have to ensure that the package which you like to deploy to production is deployed to UAT in front of. You should test it, of course, in UAT, and then deploy it to production. So this is our process. So you see, when you're taking from the right to the left, how much which is needed to deploy something to production. It's a timeline, it's a running time you should add. And then you think about when you should start creating a build on the dev machines to be ready to deploy something during night. So organize your ALM, think about how many developers I do have, how many VHD images I have to have, how many build branches. So when you're a complex project, you might have 3 dev branches, 1 test branch, 1 release branch, maybe another one. It really depends on the project size. This is a branch structure. On each branch, you're getting 1 build instance, which is used to create the deployable package, which will be deployed to UAT and to production. So this is really a critical area. I faced a lot of projects in the past where the ALM was not done, and they created the builds in their VM's manual, and at some point they missed some code, something was not checked in. So some very critical issues you can avoid when you're organizing your ALM. Okay, let's go further. Testing, and more testing. That means for us it's very important that you are testing your application, especially testing the mock cutover. We have some slides what mock cutover means in detail. Test your integrations, test your security. test with migrated data, do regression tests, and do performance tests. So integrations, it's very important to test it on the tier 2 level with this same architecture which you're getting in production. On security, use the role-based security. Do not test with admin users. I see a lot of times that the projects like to save the time during the implementation, and they're deciding, okay, we do security later on. Let's do it during end-user training. We don't have time for it to think about the role-based security. And then they're running into issues in the end-user training because all the roles they thought of are not working. They have a mess up somehow on security, and they're losing the time frame to go live. Therefore, think about the security testing in front of. This will avoid issues. Yeah, migrated data, I think it's clear. Try to use migrated data as early as possible. We fully understand that data migration is a very hard topic. It takes time to get the data out of the old environment, so legacy environment, try to transfer it into the finance and operations. But as soon you're able to test your implementation, to test your processes on migrated data, as soon you're able to find, as soon you will find the issues earlier. So this is important for us. Regression, this topic will become very, very, very important, especially when you know what will happen on April 19. So speaking about the version 10 continuous update that we are publishing, and we are moving code into UAT and into production on a monthly basis, so that you have to do regression test. There will be a tool which will be available in the next couple of months, which is helping you to create regression tests. But this topic will be very, very important for you in the future, especially when you're now in the implementation phase. Think about regression test. Maybe go a little bit further, think about unit tests in the VSTS, which is connected with your build. You can do a lot of things, but this is avoiding issues. You know. Performance, we have some performance slides on the next, some performance information on the next slides. So I will go further. Okay, ensure performance. Yeah, why we should ensure the performance? Performance is really, really, really necessary, and as soon as the performance is not working, the end users will be not satisfied, and you as a customer are not happy with the product because the end users are complaining all the time. So therefore, we are asking you, take a look to the performance as soon as possible, as much as possible. Especially on the throughputs, so take care which values you are thinking about. When you start implementation, you have maybe 10 customers available. You have a very simple configuration of the environment. The integrations which are running are maybe pushing around only 10 records for test purposes, but this will not be your final setup. So normally you are getting thousands of customers, thousands of transactions which will move around within an hour. Concentrate on the throughputs, concentrate on the volumes you like to push around, especially when you're dealing with logic apps, direct OData calls, when you're using an API to connect to our environment. Entities, when you like to use Entity Store, when you like to use BYOD, Azure Data Lake. So this all integrations, please focusing in the performance area. Try to test them on near real-life data if possible. Maybe overlapping workloads. When you're thinking about batch jobs which are creating deliveries or creating invoices, think about how much time the delivery nodes are taking when I should start my invoicing, that you don't have the overlappings. Maybe do not update all your customer data when an invoice posting is running. So take care about the overlappings you are getting when you have integrations or when you have batch jobs running. That's important. I have here cut over and peak hour. I'd like to speak a little bit about the peak hour. So when you're reviewing the telemetry data, you can use the LCS tool. You see, okay, how is my utilization going on, database, CPU utilization, and you might see a peak. So there's a peak volume one day, you have a lot of transactions ongoing, go into the detail. Use a query store which is available, use our queries you can execute to see which queries cause this peak, going into the detail, and then you might see a table which is not having a good index on. This is a good idea to focus on more and more. Yeah, when, early, late, every time you do have time for it, as much as possible. The performance area is somehow critical. Therefore, it's very important to have an eye on this. Okay, let's speak about what part of the solution can impact the performance. When you're implementing finance and operations, you do have a lot of areas which comes together. At the one side, you do have the processes and the operations. So that's something, the business flows are running through. You do have the users, you do have the analytics and the reporting coming together, integrations, customizations, extensions, something you produced on our own. You do have data. You have some servers, a database, Azure infrastructure, the standard solution which is there, devices, maybe you have a mobile phone ready, or you have a POS environment where you're typing in your something, or the warehouse where you're scanning your products. It can be a lot of things. And there's an ISV solutions also, which could cause the performance issues. So a lot of things. And I like to highlight what, oops, that was, okay, sorry, I'm back again. I like to highlight what our commitment is, what we are doing in terms of performance. So we are taking care that the servers are good and running 24/7. This is our mission. This is something what we are doing. It's in part of our SLA. We are taking care that the database is running. We are taking care that the Azure infrastructure is ready and that the standard solution we are providing is good. We are providing hot fixes on a standard solution. We might deploy some fixes on the Azure interface. Then you will get a notification via the LCS. Hey, we found some lag on the Azure infrastructure. You will have a downtime on the Sunday for 4 hours. We will fix it. The same is for the database. We have watchdogs running which are monitoring the database. When there is something which is critical, we are opening an internal ticket. We will put an engineer on it. It will be fixed. And hopefully it will not cause any downtime. And the servers which are running in the background will be covered by us too. We will fix them, we will monitor them. This is our mission not to break you somehow. And then we do have the other side. So which parts can be disturbed by scalability? Think about how many rollouts you're getting. You're getting more and more legal entities after the phases. And all the process and operations you're running, could be a different one when you're adding more and more legal entities. When you add more users, of course, you're getting more noise in the system, on the environment. This is something which could cause performance issues. Think about the reporting and the analysis. So when you have more data you like to report on, this could cause some performance impact. Think about integrations. So when you like to have an hour Zoom call via Logic app pushing around 1 million customers from left to right, okay, this could be causing performance. So therefore have a look on it, take care. When you're doing customizations, sure, when you're writing your own queries on your own, when you're changing the process somehow with the extension points we are providing, this could cause performance topics. The data you're putting in, especially on data and maybe extensions, think about an index. We are providing a database and tables where you find indexes on. But we are not able to cover all tables with every necessary index. So think about when you're having too much indices, the database is working on updating the indices all the time. And this is bad for the environment. Therefore, we agreed on an average of indices, which we are providing in our standard solution. But what you should do when you're testing the performance, you should review the queries, and maybe you see a table where an index is needed because you are filtering on a form of the specific fields where no index is on. You're running a batch shop for invoicing where you're filtering on a field on the sales order table where an index is missing. Or you created an own field on your own, and the user decided, hey, that field is cool, I like to create a crazy filtering on it, and this is causing issues because an index is missing. So the data and especially the index on the tables can infect the performance. So therefore have a look to it. Right, and yeah, the devices you're connecting to, the ISVs you're installing, everything could disturb stability. And mostly these topics are owned by the project. So this is nothing we are providing from our solution. We are with you finding the issues, but most of the times you should know when you're adding users, you should know when you have some extensions, you should know how much data you're putting in. This is something where we kindly ask you, think about it, what you're doing in the environment. Okay, my last slide I do have here is about data management best practices. When you're in the implementation phase, it's recommended by us having a golden configuration environment. This environment could be a cloud-hosted environment you're hosting in the LCS on the private Azure subscription. It could be a Microsoft environment which is in our Microsoft subscription. It doesn't matter where it is, but this environment could be used for configuration purposes, that you're doing your final configurations inside this environment. And what we are providing is you have a self-service available in LCS where you can move the databases from the configuration environment into a dev environment, into a UAT environment, so to prepare your testing for the end users, for example. And every time you are saying, okay, I have a new fresh release on my configuration, you could move the database into the other environments. But it's important that you're holding this configuration, and we are calling it gold configuration. Because when you're reaching the go-live time, it's possible for us to get this gold configuration environment, the database, and move it into the productive environment. It takes us about 2 hours. And then you will find this gold configuration environment inside our productive instance. And then you can start working with it. You can shoot your data migration against it. You can enable the users and they will play around. And you know, okay, this is my configuration I'm getting for the go live. Another example is gold configuration. It really depends on your size. When you're a small project, it could be that you're saying, hey, I do have 500 items or 500 products available. The data migration is so expensive and so crazy. We don't like to do the data migration automatically. We have here some resources available. They are typing in their 500 products somehow 3 weeks in front of the go live. And this you can do in the gold configuration environment. So you can prepare your data migration inside the gold configuration. And when it's time to go live, you can move this database and put it into the productive environment, and then you can work on it. Another case is open purchase orders or open sales orders. When you're saying, oh, well, we could migrate this, but it took us time to test the entities which are available. It took us time to run it, and okay, we see issues, we have to implement hotfixes. This is a risk in our project. And when you're a small implementation, I mean, you could use this gold configuration environment to enable to create the purchase orders you need on production, which may be created in your legacy system, but will be delivered in 2 months or in 3 months. It really depends on your business. So what I'd like to say is here, you can use the gold configuration environment not only for configuration purposes, you could use this for everything you could do in front of the go live, which is saving somehow time in the cutover. Okay, you can move, as I said, the database is the yellow one into the productive environment. Then we will inform you when the service request is done. You can work on it, you have to enable the users, and you can proceed. When you went live, of course, you should not overwrite production again. This is only something you can do once. When you like to roll out in some other countries, you could not, as I said, to copy the gold configuration into the productive environment. Our solution is using the data packages. So in the finance and operations, you will find the DMF, the data management framework. Inside the data management framework, you will find the data entities, which is a simple structure of the customer data, of address data, etc. And within this data management framework, you could export data and put it into data packages which you can execute or can import in the productive environment. And this will be your approach for rolling out. So initial rollout, the first one, copy gold configuration into production. The second, the third, the fifth, the sixth, I don't know how many rollouts you're getting. Use the data packages. This is helping you setting up the productive environment, ramp up new legal entities. I do have 5 customers. They created a configuration template. So you see in the LCS project, they have the data packages template for EMEA, for America, for APAC. And every time they're rolling out, they're creating a new legal entity. They're executing the data configuration package against it, and then they're doing the data migration on top of it. This is something which you can do. It's very cool in my opinion, but you have to prepare it in front of, you have to test it, of course, but that's the only chance to reduce manual work. For small integrations, sure you can type in the configuration again. By manual, it really depends how complex your project is. Okay, backward, what does it mean? It means you went live, you have production data inside, but you like to troubleshoot on some issues. You could copy production data into UAT. You could copy data from UAT into a tier 1 into a dev environment. This is something you can do by self-service. You can start the process via LCS. We announced yesterday or 2 days ago the new feature that you can push the data directly to a tier 1 environment. Have a look to the LinkedIn streams on Jammer. You will see some news on it. And this is something, create a process, how often you like to copy production data into UAT. It's important because when you're facing an issue in production, our support will ask for, hey, did you reproduce it in UAT? Is it possible to reproduce the issue? And sometimes this execution of the issue is dependent on the configuration, on the data, on the sales, or on the customer, which is in production only. And when you then have to start creating the data in production, you will lose time. So it's better to have somehow a fresh UAT database, which is covering your productive data, help you to reproducing issues when you like to troubleshoot. The same as putting it into a dev environment. The developer will ask you, hey, I like to debug it, but I'm missing the data. Well, could you please create the data for me? This is time consuming. So therefore, put the data into a dev environment where a developer is able to start the debugging. Let's cover the questions later, okay? Okay, that's about the data management best practices. So have a look to it in front of before you're starting the implementation. Think about what is my structure, how we are going live, how we are rolling out. And as Dana said, with FastTrack, we are coming with a subscription, so you will get contacted by us. And we are happy to speak with you, to align with you. What I'm doing when I'm getting a new project, I'm asking questions about, hey, what about the data management, what you're doing? And then we have a conversation about it. And I can share my recommendations, but the decision how you're doing it, it's yours. So it's owned by project, it's owned by the customer. We are only there to share our recommendations and our experience we are faced in the past. Okay, Spot and Dana.
Thank you. All right. So next up, we want to talk about cutover planning. So this is something that is frequently an afterthought. So teams are usually so busy toward the end of a project, getting those final bugs is fixed and getting final rounds of testing and getting data sorted out, that they forget about thinking of what does the cutover actually look like. So a few things here is, what is the cutover plan? So essentially just the activities that you are going to execute to transition from your legacy into production. That can happen overnight in some cases, a small project. That can happen over a weekend. That's a very common scenario that we see. It could happen over several months if you have a multi-phase kind of a rollout of multiple plants or multiple countries or whatever is supporting your organization. So it is important to think about what is required, and go through that in a very methodical way. When to start the cutover planning? We recommend starting this during the development phase, and the reason for that is when you finish development, you're going to go into testing cycles. Testing cycles are a perfect opportunity to test your cutover plan and to really sort of flesh out what are the steps that you need to cut over. When you build up a UAT environment, you will essentially go through the steps that Sev mentioned a few minutes ago. You put your golden configuration, you load up all your data, you activate your users, you go through and you start in the test, similar to what you would do in production. So if you have a plan that's even a draft plan, when you start rounds of testing, you are then practicing and building up that cutover plan so that it is a much more higher quality plan and includes tasks that you may have forgotten. And then you should do a final practice run of the cutover plan at some point before you go live. Between, it's 2 to 6 weeks maybe before you go live. After you get the production environment stood up, run that conversion again. Just make a trial run of it. That way everybody gets comfortable, you're running it into production, you make sure all your endpoints are right, you make sure all the timing of the data loading is all right, and then you can do a final regression test in production, some final performance testing in production. So that's a recommendation that we have. And then really the goal of this is to minimize disruption and risk to the organization. So really put some thought into that when you're approaching the end of development, not when you're approaching the end of UAT. So start early. I talked about that one on the last slide. Be thorough. So you sometimes don't realize all the different tasks that are involved in the cutover. When you start to think about turning off the old system, do we have to stop sales transactions and ship everything off of the old system before we take it offline? Do we have to come up with a different staging location in the warehouse so that we can bring goods that have come to the dock and sort of keep those aside until the new system comes online? There's impacts to the organization that you really have to think through, and very methodically just walk through as a team what are all the little steps when you think about closing out that old system. And if it's one of those cutovers that you're cutting over one site on a weekend and that's it, that's the end of the plan, then that's a simpler thing. If you have a scenario where you're cutting over multiple sites at different times, there's even some other things to think about. So practice, we talked about that one on the last slide. There's, run that mock conversion and practice that cutover on your UAT cycles or your test cycles whenever possible. Plan together, include folks from finance, from operations, get the stakeholders outside of the project team involved to make sure that you are being thorough and including all the tasks that are really needed. Communicate the plan. And this one goes back to one of the first points that I mentioned about user adoption and really the customer satisfaction. If you're communicating out to your users what's going to happen and they understand, I'm going to stop processing these transactions at this time in my old system and what's going to happen in between, and how do I handle getting my job done on that in-between time, whether that's just a few hours on Friday afternoon or that's some extended period. Communicate that out. It really makes your users feel better about what's going on and more confident in understanding that the project team has really thought through what's happening, and gives them more confidence and leads to a better adoption experience. And then set expectations. None of these projects are perfect. I haven't met one yet. ERP projects usually have some bumps and ripples in them at go live and after go live. If there's awareness of those kinds of things, it's a good time at the cutover to set those expectations. If you need additional resources, there's an area that's just maybe going to be a little bit rocky, you have to do manual data migration entries or something of that effect, it's good to set those expectations so your organization leadership is aware of what's going to happen, and again, that gives more confidence in the team, gives more confidence in the solution as you move forward. So what are the aspects of the cutover plan? The way that an effective cutover plan is going to include, of course, all the activities. You should have the dates that those those should be executed, the time that they should be executed. Sometimes it's down to 10, 15 minutes. I activate the users, there's a smoke test, there's all these things that are happening sequentially, and so there can be long tasks, there can be short tasks in there. So understand what the estimated duration of the tasks are. Again, the cutover weekend or week doesn't always go 100% smoothly, so you might have to make adjustments on the fly. So understanding what the estimated duration is allows you to just push all the subsequent tasks out. Which environment are these tasks happening in? So sometimes you might be loading data into an environment that's then going to be copied to prod in that golden configuration where you're staging migration data. So folks need to know where do they go to do what things. If you're connecting integrated systems, then those systems may go offline as well, and so there might be activities that have to happen in those systems. Initializing integrations, getting data flowing between those systems. So you have to make sure that folks understand not only what task do I have to do, what time do I have to do it, what environment am I supposed to be working in. Have a task owner. If there's not a task owner, you don't know who's accountable. It's even good to have a backup to that task owner because sometimes unexpected things happen. People get sick or they have issues with kids or whatever else, so having a backup is a good idea. Have a status so we know whether it's completed or not completed, and what are the execution steps that have to happen. And then for confidence, it's always great to include all the same people that are going to run the actual cutover in the mock cutover, so it's a real simulation of what you're going to do. And then communicate. Communicate out to all the users what the plan is and what their responsibilities are. You have that clearly designated owner so that they know. Establish a communication plan for the cutover weekend so everyone's aware if there's a task that's falling behind schedule and their task is dependent upon that, they need to know that. So establish a communication plan. And then practice, include a contingency plan. What if it just goes horribly wrong? What happens then? How do you roll back? Is there a rollback? Who needs to get alerted if things go horribly wrong or run very late? Steering committees and things like that. So, and include a go, no-go checkpoint. That should happen before you begin to cut over, but then it could also happen at certain points in the actual cutover itself, when you're going to pass the point of no return on an integration, when you're going to turn on now receiving to start coming in from the warehouses, because you have to get the goods out to the floor to really be good for Monday morning. That might need to happen on Sunday morning. So once you start doing that, you kind of pass the point of no return, and maybe there's a cutoff, excuse me, a go, no-go that should happen there.
I'd like to add here something. So we are speaking about ERP, right? I mean, we have a lot of dependencies between business, between our implementation project. Therefore, the cutover communication plan is very important. So we're speaking about change management, maybe. So I got a lot of projects which try to work on the change management on their own, and they got completely confused about how they're moving forward. So reach out for somebody who knows how to do change management in your own organization. Maybe there's a resource available which is supporting you, creating internal marketing papers, trying to communicate all the things you will change to the users. Do a road show, moving through, traveling to your locations, and include the users. Hey, this is something you're working on. You will get it in 1.5 years. Let's stay in touch. Sometimes we're speaking about CRP, so conference room pilots. So soon one of your testing is done and one part of your development is ready. invite the people, do a conference room pilot, show them what the process will be. Maybe your key user can execute the testing in front of a group. So this is very important. Do not lose the connection to the end users. Do not lose the business when you're implementing ERP. Another thing is include non-system activities. Let's think about inventory. So we like to move our whole inventory into the new ERP environment. So sometimes we have to count how much inventory we do have. Maybe we have to align with the purchase department that we trying to purchase or trying to invoice as much as possible. So we need the invoices from the vendors. Okay, call them, inform them, hey, we are changing our ERP environment. Could you please send us the invoice a little bit earlier? So these are a lot of dependencies, so it's very, very important to include non-system activities that you see, okay, whoa, this is something I have to figure out in the next couple of months. Okay, let's get it done. But write it down. Otherwise, you might miss something which is very important.
Thanks, Steph. All right, a couple last things here. So configuration deployment, we covered that in the golden config, so that's the configuration going up. And then include that in the mock cutover, so go through those steps and have the final sign-off be upon that test that you're doing. Let the users do the day in the life testing. For some reason, even though end users have been testing in UAT for months, sometimes they don't really get comfortable until it's really in production. So it's good to do a day in the life test on production. And then a final performance validation. So we definitely want you to be doing performance testing months before go live and tuning and optimizing all of the performance, but it's always nice to do the final round on the production environment before you go live. So some other final things just as you're preparing for go live. You've had a partner for the many months. You've worked with FastTrack architects and have a lot of support as you're going through the implementation because there's a really large work effort there. But as you're starting to get ready to go live, you also have to think about what responsibilities as a customer, or if you're a partner, what responsibilities do your customers need to take on, and how to transition those responsibilities from partner to customer. So getting comfortable with LCS is one of those areas. We do see many projects. It is primarily partners that are in LCS. LCS is lifecycle services. That's the administration console or site for Dynamics. So that's where you go to deploy environments, to deploy code packages. It has monitoring tools. It has the business process modeler, all kinds of tools up there. You enter support tickets and service requests there, and a bunch of other things. So as a customer, as you're approaching go live or even earlier in the project, get comfortable with how LCS works and understand where to go to do different things. It's a good transition to make some months before go live. All right, so Sev mentioned this a little bit earlier, and it is an initiative that we're taking on right now in Dynamics 365 to bring everyone to a single version. So it's a bit of an undertaking because we have folks that are on a number of different combinations of application and platform versions, but in order to provide, I think, a better service as well as minimize the impact of upgrading and essentially make upgrading a non-event, which is for our customers that have been with us for years. Everyone will tell you that upgrading has not been a non-event in the past, but we'd like to make it a non-event in the future. So we've made some changes to the architecture of the application, and code is now being supported in extensions as opposed to overlaying of source code, which is how we have traditionally been developing on the platform. So, with that change, we've been able to actually seal the source code. So customers and partners are no longer able to make changes to the source code, which means we can deploy changes to the source code without impacting these extensions that are sitting alongside. So that allows us to do more frequent updates of the source code and deliver hotfixes and enhancements on a continuous basis. Not every day, fortunately, but they will be at least quarterly major releases, twice a year is the plan, and then smaller enhancements and bug fixes probably on a monthly basis. So there was another session earlier this week that really got into that in detail, so I won't share too much about it. If you missed that session, it will have been recorded, and you can check it on the website and get the full download of what that's all about. But we will be doing platform updates and application updates that'll kind of be combined, and there is still some dependency on partner code, ISVs, customer code, so there will be an expectation that you do a test. So we would deploy a new version on the UAT sandbox, and you would have some period of time. It's typically no less than a week to test that before the new version would be deployed into the production environment. And then you, of course, have the opportunity to waive that if you do have a problem with the new version, and then we leave you time to mitigate that issue. So, but that's quite a large initiative that we're undertaking. That's ongoing now. Yes, please, Seth.
I'd like to add something again when you go a slide back. Yep. Okay, cool. So we see here the critical KBs, and this is for me something which is quite cool, thinking about being in the cloud. When you know what happened in 2009 or RX 2012, you got not informed about, oh wait, there's a hotfix available which is helping me to fix some issue. I mean, it was your own responsibility to search through the blogs and through the web to see, oh, whoops, there's a good fix which is helping me getting rid of my warehouse issues I do have here. And with the critical KBs, what we're doing is we are reviewing telemetry data between the customers which are live. Okay, and as soon some customer is waving the flag and saying, oh, we are having here data corruption in the inventory, help us. Support is taking the care of this, and as soon this fix is done, or when we are in the mitigation, we are reaching out to the other customers who could be affected by this issue which is appearing. So you could get an email by the FastTrack team or by an engineer, hey, dear customer, sorry to disturb you, but we saw that another customer which is using the same process as you is facing an issue. We saw it, you do have a tool in your environment, we are on it, we will inform you as soon the fix is available. And this is something we are calling critical KBs. So we are publishing critical KBs at the moment in the LCS. So when you're opening the LCS in the view details, you see critical KBs. There you see hotfixes which are very critical for you because we compare the telemetry data. You're facing an issue which is happening right now, and you should take this hotfix as soon as possible to avoid running into this issue on yourself. And this is for me a good example what is a good reason to be in a cloud, to get inside the telemetry data, to get reviewed by our watchdogs we created.
Great, thanks, Seth. All right, so a little bit more on the continuous update. We released 8.0 application in April. We have quite a few customers that have taken that one up. And we have 8.1 being released just in a few weeks in October. And those are both applications with the sealed source code that I mentioned. So these would have customizations and modifications deployed completely in extension models. Starting with version 10, that's when we enter the continuous update world, where we'll be more or less trying to target one version for all customers. It won't be 100%. We'll still have some customers probably that either opt out of an update for one reason or another, or lag behind just a little bit, but definitely gives us a lot more ability to focus on delivering more enhancements more rapidly and improving the overall scope and quality of the application. So, And the updates will be done by Microsoft. So that's something that historically partners have worked on. And so for customers, this is good news in the sense that you don't have the expense of doing an extensive upgrade. Moving the code and the customizations into extensions gives us that capability, as I said. So it's not doing a massive code upgrade every time there's a new release. And you don't have to have a bunch of code upgrade happening. So that's good news. And then, as I mentioned, 2 major updates, April and October. So these will be larger feature sets that are released. And again, there's a whole bunch of detail that was presented in the other session about how those features will be deployed. They'll be controlled by parameters, so you're not suddenly going to get a brand new feature that your AP people are off, oh, hey, look at this thing. We got, they just start using it even though you haven't had a chance to test it. That's not going to happen. Those major features would be deployed in like an off mode. And then one of the other important factors here that we're moving to is a zero downtime. So we know with deploying so many new releases, it's going to be important for all of our customers to be unimpacted by that. So zero downtime is another thing that we need to bring at the same time that this is all rolling out. So another one of the things to think about as you're approaching go live is how are you going to support? So partners going away, FastTrack architects going away. You really need to be self-sufficient, be able to sustain yourself going forward. And looking at what are the different support options, how do you get support, how do you continue to develop those knowledge, the knowledge base internally around the application, and what are the assets that are available to you out there. So you have communities, you have team blogs, you have tech talks. Those are actually a function of the FastTrack program. So we do a web kind of a conference. We present a topic. It's usually about 50 or 60 minutes long. And we kind of deep dive into something like extensibility or data migration framework or ALM or a variety of other topics. And so we're constantly trying to refresh those topics and keep them relevant and up to date. We record them, and then we publish those on Infopedia as well, so you have access to those as a FastTrack customer. And then, of course, docs.microsoft.com. If you don't already visit that site for other areas of Microsoft and or finance and operations, that's our primary documentation site. Documentation is, it's always difficult to keep up. Historically, we haven't done a terrific job at it, but Docs is definitely a good go of it, and that is where we keep all the up-to-date information. Our team is also partly responsible for curating that information, so when we find a Docs article that is either outdated or incorrect, we bring that to the engineering and product team members and ask them to update it, or we update it depending on what the content is itself. You have LCS, we talked about that a little bit, and then task guides, and I'll mention a couple things on task guides if you're not familiar with those. They're a function of the task recorder, which is essentially like a macro tool that you have in finance and operations that allows you to record a process. And then those can be used for sort of a self-guided training and rerun back for a user to do a click-through experience, but those can also be automated and used for regression testing and performance testing. So as you're going through the implementation, you may want to think about building up a library of task guides for the processes that your users are going to be using. And then for support, you have a few different choices on support. So what comes with the subscription is kind of standard support next day. There's not a really powerful SLA there. It's just you open a support case, they'll get back to you by the next business day. You have enhanced support. That's going to be an SLA with less than 2 hours, so turnaround times there are a little bit better. You have professional, and then you have premier support. So just based on what's happening in your organization and that sort of thing, you need to select the support plan that works best for you. If you have a lot of competency in-house, you may not need to have the premier support. You may be able to go with one of the other support options. And then partners are still always going to be your first line of defense. So as you're going through the implementation process and then immediately after implementation, partners are generally involved and with you on site, or at least just a phone call away. So they're really still your first line of support there. They'll help you with everything that's functional, technical, and then they also bring implementation methodology. All right, I think this is the last one. So organizational readiness, so the bar across the top as you're approaching go live, you're making the transition to what we call system operations, where you're actually operating in production mode. What's happening there, again, we're disengaging, project team is disengaging. How to plan for end user support. We talked about how are you going to get your teams, do you have an internal help desk already? Are they trained on how to handle those level 1 types of questions? Do they know how to set up new users? Do they know how to troubleshoot a security issue? You need to just kind of think through those types of things. And then for continuous innovation or continuous improvement, how do you tackle each of those things? Do you have someone with competency or knowledge in Azure? Are you going to, how are you going to handle these updates and upgrades and things that come along? It's really updates and not upgrades, so we should probably update that one going forward. But having a plan for monitoring the system, again, making sure you've done the knowledge transfer, who's going to be responsible, do they understand what to look for and what the red flags are? Security management, as you hire new users and you have attrition, who's going to be updating, maintaining users, updating security. Integration management, do you have someone in-house who understands how to maintain the integrations? If there's a failure in an integration, do they know what to do? Do they know how to roll it back or restart it or what have you? And if your business changes and you need to change that integration, then you may need to do some additional work there as well. So you need to, if you intend to be self-sufficient or call partner or whatever, just having a plan and thinking about it. Same thing with batches, devices. That we could include printers in the device category, as they require some care and feeding over time as well. And then performance management. So as you're adding more and more data, different workloads, you could see some impacts to performance. So it's just thinking through each one of those things and really being prepared to maintain your application in operation mode. And we'd like to give you guys time for questions. We have a little more than 5 minutes left. So we'll be happy to take any questions you have. And first of all, I guess thanks all for coming. We have the exciting, what are we calling it, celebration tonight. So appreciate you guys being here. Sir?
Yeah, hi. One thought, you mentioned that you can, I know it might be just schematics, but you mentioned that you can copy the golden config to production, and to my best knowledge, that's not possible anymore. You can copy the golden config to UAT and then request the copy from UAT to production. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So you have one service, so you have a process where you can take the database from the tier 1 environment and you have to put it into tier 2, that it's on SQL Azure. And from SQL Azure, you can create a service request from type others. So that's a special request where you have to write down, hey, we know we will overwrite production. Could you please overwrite it for me? Take this database also from these tier 2 environment, and then it will be executed. You will find a perfect documentation on the docs for it. So on the link preparing for go live, you will see, okay, how to move gold configuration. That is possible.
Okay, thank you. I've just been sure that it wasn't changed
Yeah.
again.
And for example, when you're thinking about running a mock code over, you can do it twice. So do it once, doing mock code over, run the test scripts, run integrations, run data migration, and then reset it, and then do it again.
Okay. Just a note, I have seen a lot of projects where it can be for economical reasons, it can be that the customer is not, doesn't really know how many licenses they will end up with. So all those projects I have been involved in as a partner, we have always started with the 20 licenses, which is the minimum. So I have to admit, I have never gone through the full FastTrack experience, simply because customers are not prepared for this, and perhaps they don't want to pay for this in advance, because the project can span half a year, 1 year, where they don't really see the benefit. So just a remark that I know that the license count can be an easy way to differentiate, but for the partners and the customers, it might not be the best way, because some customers might have a benefit of going into the full FastTrack, but doesn't have the 150 licenses.
Yeah. You're right. The user count, or the seats which the customer do have, is not change the flexibility in the project.
Exactly.
We are aware of this.
Okay.
So what you can do is, we are doing a service which comes to the subscriptions. It's a great guidance we are providing. Speak with the customer, speak with the sales opportunity people. Maybe it's possible to have some contract in place that you're getting the FastTrack service. But officially, you have to have the licenses to get the full FastTrack program. When you're not in the full FastTrack program, please use the forum for the office hours we are providing. Go to the forum, ask your questions, informing us, keep speaking with us, that we are informed that you are planning a crazy complex project.
Okay.
Would you like to add something, Dana?
No, that's good. You got it. So.
Last question. I know that recently it has been enabled that you can have multiple production instances in one tenant. FastTrack-wise, I don't find a lot of documentation regarding this.
So we do have a documentation in place when you're going to docs and going with the finance operations. And the second level, you will find something what to do when you like to have multiple production instances. You have to reach out to USA, or you have to reach out to the essential email DL. And what you will get is you will get a second LCS project. But first of all, we have an internal triage. So you have to see what is the purpose of your requirement, why you like to get 2 productive instances. Okay. But there is a documentation in the docs. You can do it offline. I can show you where it is.
I know I have read it.
Okay.
It's not very thorough.
What it is?
The documentation is not very detailed.
Okay, but you have to speak with us. As soon as you're saying we are requesting additional productive instances on the same tenant, we will speak with you, we will communicate with you how it will work.
Okay.
It's not actually something that you can do. We have to do it
I know,
behind the scenes.
and there's no documentation on what about the licenses? How do you differentiate the minimum of 20 when you have multiple?
Yeah.
Is it then 40? It doesn't say. So the documentation lack a lot of details.
Yeah, good feedback. We can take that back and maybe enhance that a little bit, give better information. Thank you for that.
But did you read the newest version of the documentation? There is an area where the license is described, what is happening with the seats and with the subscriptions which are in place, especially when you like to split the license on the LCS project. Let's have a look to it later on. I'm very sure that this is covered in the documentation.
Let's go to the
There's a question on the right side.
A couple of things. That community office hours, how do you get invited to that?
Good question.
What? I didn't go through the question.
I believe that all the essentials customers, and it's probably based on the LCS, if you're part of an LCS project, They're using the distribution list from that, is my understanding.
I've been on 5 onboardings. I've never seen anything about this.
Okay?
So what
Yep.
we are doing,
Feedback. I can take your information and make sure that we forward that to the right person to get you included on the
to add something, the onboarding will reach out, and the FastTrack team essentially will reach out to the people who are created as a user in the LCS.
Yeah, but
The
he's
person
been onboarded,
leading
so,
Users.
yeah. Same for you. Okay, okay.
Okay.
Yep, so we're not doing that well. That's good feedback.
next.
Thank you.
For issues that are open with the support, can FastTrack help if something's been, say, lingering for 14 days without a tech being assigned to it? Can we reach out to FastTrack on that?
You can. We try not to be support, but you can try. Your SA may be able to drop a note. There's probably a problem with the support ticket if it's been sitting with no assignment for 14 days, but
We've had a
yeah, that sounds like a system issue.
Okay, and let's see now. Yeah, you had a note on your slide, practice cutovers.
Yeah.
It indicated that you recommend practice cutovers between 2 and 4 weeks ahead of go live for minimum. What's the furthest window out we can get for practice go lives?
Well, that final practice go live should be on the production environment. Okay.
And that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, so as your production is generally deployed somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks before go live, and it really depends on the state of what's going on with the project. So we have that go live readiness checklist and assessment process that gates the deployment of the production environment. And so there may be some remediations, or it may be that you're just not done testing and not really ready to go live, and that's what we're trying to mitigate at that point. So yeah, but so somewhere 2 weeks to 6 weeks before you go live, running the mock conversion in production is recommended.
And what remediation is available when that mock production go live is undersized?
When production is undersized based on the testing you do in your mock cutover? Yeah, that I would just open up a support request or talk to your solution architect on that, because sizing is a function of 2 things. It's the subscriptions that are on the project, as well as the usage profile. So the usage profile, or subscription estimator, as it's called on LCS, that's where you put all the volumes of data that's going to be moving around. So those 2 pieces are, pardon me?
Done a couple of dozen of them.
Okay. Yep. So those are the 2 criteria that we're using to size production. So if you're undersized and you're seeing that there's some performance impact on that, then yeah, surface it up. Yeah.
It's important that once your usage profile is done, and you upload it to UAT and your productive environment is deployed, and when you're facing issues on performance, so fixing the performance issue by saying, oh, the production environment is too small, is not the right way. Go into the detail, have a look why you are facing a bad performance. Use the LCS tools which are available and try to figure out to troubleshoot the issue. Find out where's my peak, what is the issue? Is it the batch job? Is it the posting of invoice? Is it integration? It's OData? It's a logic app which is causing the issue. So go into the details. When you know what is causing, create a support ticket informing us where the issue is coming from, and we're happy to work with you.
So it's entirely incumbent upon us to tell you where the problem is.
Yes, we are requesting the partner, the customer, we are asking the partner, helping us to understand where the performance issues are coming from. When you know which area, we're happy to work with you.
Hardware that we have no visibility to.
Yeah, well, not exactly. So we talked about it earlier, Seb mentioned, we have this watchdog monitoring that's happening. So we're continuously monitoring what is happening in the environment. And if there are long-running queries, for example, that have been running for more than 30 seconds, that's something that gets triggered. If there is SQL DTU that is above 80% for some sustained period, 5 minutes or whatever the threshold is, then those alarms are going off. So yeah, so if you have a particular case that you want to talk about, happy to take the information and to pass it to our performance. We have kind of a performance SWAT team on our team that looks at performance. So, you know, we're happy to work with you on that. It's not our goal to have a service that is not meeting expectations. So definitely, if you want to stick around and share that with me, I'll be happy to take it up for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
You also, and then you.
Togo. Thank you. So you mentioned production will be deployed in between 6 to 2 weeks before.
So there's not a magical number there. It can be, I've had customers deploy production 3 days before go live.
Okay,
You know,
that's fine.
so
Basically,
that's not our goal. That's not what we want to see happen. But yeah, between 2 and 6 weeks before go live.
the reason I'm asking is because let's say in the project plan there are 2 mock go lives defined in advance production.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we notify FastTrack we would like to do those mock go lives on the production environment?
So this is after you've completed UAT and you've tested everything
Yes,
there,
yes.
business is signed off. Okay, so you don't really have to tell us that you're doing the mock cutover on production. What you need to do is to fill up the go live checklist. You should receive an email from our team that says, please complete this checklist and submit it here. And that email distribution is triggered based on your go live date in LCS. So you've got a methodology and a go live milestone in LCS. That date will trigger the email that gets sent out to say, it's time for you to do this go live readiness. When you complete that checklist, it goes to our team, and we have a group of architects that reviews that and gives feedback. So if you're in the FastTrack program, your named architect will call you, and you'll go through a meeting to review that and have any remediations discussed. Or you'll get an email with the assessment report back, and that may have some remediations in it. But that process is happening in kind of in that same time window between 2 to 6 weeks. So if you start at 6 weeks before, probably get production deployed, you know, soon thereafter, and then you can run your mock cutover at any point in time there.
And when we done with the first one, we just ask for another deployment or another database refresh from Golden Copy, or?
Right, yes. So you have a couple of options there. You could actually snap back to a point in time on production. You would have to open up a support request, not a service request, to do that. And you could also just do the request to get the Golden database copied over, which is essentially resetting you too. So you have a couple of options when you do that mock cutover to reset production for the real cutover.
So within 6 weeks, we can even do this like 2 or 3 times, right? If it's necessary.
You could, you know.
Okay, I'm just.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, it depends on if you like to put the new configuration database behind it, then you need the service request in the LCS from type others. When you like to roll back within the 30 days we are providing with the Azure feature, you have to create a support request. And speaking with support, hey, we'd like to roll back on Thursday to the Monday last week. You can do it.
I have another question. So there is a data upgrade. Currently, the data upgrade process should be you have the build environment, you upgrade the data. You can ask for a data movement from the tier 1 environment to the tier 2 environment, or it's not possible? It has to be done manually.
It's the backpack process you're speaking about. So you can use the tier 1 database, create an export, you can create a backpack file through it, and then you can move this backpack file into the tier 2 environment.
Can I do it through LCS or a request, or it has to be done manually?
At the moment, it's a manual process to do it. Yeah, that's at the moment the plan, that you can do it manual. There will be some more features, some more functionality in the LCS in the future, but at the moment, that's the manual process to move data from tier 1 into the tier 2 environment.
So is that means you are basically suggesting to have a Golden copy on a tier 2 sandbox environment?
So what I see very often in the project is that they have 2 or 3 tier 2 environments in the LCS available, yes. It really depends on the project, but when you're rolling out in the future, you will have 2 additional tier 2, an additional tier 2 environment to be able to hotfix production every time. So as soon you're developing, you're rolling out, you're deploying new features, you don't like to disturb production, okay, and then a bug is appearing in production, you have to be able to hotfix. Therefore, it's a good idea to have 2 tier 2 environments available, and you could use this as a gold configuration environment when you're in the implementation phase, and then switching over to have it as a release.
I think I heard you ask if we're proposing to use tier 2 for golden config, and we're not. We're proposing that you put it on a tier 1 and backpack it to tier 2, and then ask for the refresh from tier 2 to prod. Yeah.
Okay.
In most cases, it's overkill to have a tier 2 for golden config. It just doesn't have that level of usage. A few consultants here and there entering configs typically. Yeah. If you're doing a bunch of staging of data before prod, then you might want to move it up to a tier 2 at that point in time. So, yeah, but we're not saying to use the tier 2 as a standard recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question?
Non-standard question, obviously. What happens when you do have the dev environment that need to be moved to tier 2? Because we are having this issue. We are pretty much not able to have the dev environment on a tier 1.
Okay.
Because of the size of the data.
The size of the data.
And size of what we're doing.
Okay.
I had queries running for 8 hours.
Okay. And is it a cloud-hosted environment or Microsoft managed?
Yes. A couple of them are. Most of them are not. But a couple of them are, because we need to reproduce that on Azure SQL, because we have the issue of not having the same kind of environment between the policy that there are in the Azure SQL environment against the share table and SQL on an hosted machine.
On a dev box, though. I mean,
Yes.
a dev box is a one-box environment.
Yes.
And it wouldn't, yeah.
Exactly. So there is an architecture difference that doesn't allow us to replicate exactly. So we have a couple of dev boxes on tier 1 at the moment, but we are about to move them on tier 2. How can we access the tier 2 backend?
So it will be not possible to access tier 2 environments. At the moment, it's possible to connect via RDP. In the future, the RDP access will be gone too, only using LCS. So you cannot access the tier 2 backend.
Ouch. Okay.
Yep. That's actually been for quite a while. Yeah. All the while.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Azure
So
SQL.
we will add more and more features to the LCS that you can self-service your requirements. But this is the way we will go.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. If there's any other questions, come on up to the front. We'll be happy to take those one off.